Okay, as promised, we're going to make Spaetzle. What is Spaetzle? Spaetzle is a German dumpling. Now, there's probably hundreds, maybe thousands of ways to make Spaetzle. If you have a German grandmother and you tell her I made it like this, she's going to say that it's wrong. You could speak to another German grandmother and she might say that it's right. This is the way that I do it. The only thing that I have that's special is I have a potato ricer. Now, a potato ricer is used to make mashed potatoes. What it is it's got holes in the bottom of it, a press, okay? And for Spaetzle, all it's going to do is it's going to come down through these holes into kind of a noodle, a small dumpling noodle, okay? If you have a colander will work. There are special Spaetzle makers, a Spaetzle board that you can use. But basically anything with a hole about this size, a little bit bigger, I would use this as a minimum. But anything that has a hole that allows it to go down through and make a dumpling is going to work for you. I've brought some water up to a boil, and I've now got it at a simmer. It's going to be salted water. How much salted water? Again, it's to taste. Okay, for the amount of water I have, which is about 8 cups, I'm going to put 2 big helpings. But I'm going to stir it in, and I'm going to taste it. How salty should it be? It should be ocean salty. Have you been to the ocean, gone swimming in the ocean? Got a little bit of ocean water in your mouth? It should be that salty. If you haven't been to the ocean and you don't know what that tastes like, man, get to the ocean. You got to do some living, right? Do it to taste. As salty as it is, it'll be about that salty with the noodle or with the dumpling, whatever you're putting in. Okay, I have a tablespoon of butter that is melting in a skillet. Okay, and I'm just going to let that melt for right now. I've got it on very low heat. We are going to turn that heat up because we are going to be doing some cooking. But for now, I'm just getting that butter nice and loose. The recipe calls for, actually, let's start with the more basic part of the recipe. We have got, let me make sure I had to half this recipe. I've got a half a cup of flour, just plain all-purpose flour, okay? And I have got a 1/4 teaspoon of table salt. I've got a pinch of white pepper. And the reason we use white pepper, it's a little spicier, but it's also white. And so you won't get the black flecks of a pepper in what should look like a nice creamy noodle. And then the last thing that I use, and this is a personal preference, I have got whole nutmeg. You can buy powdered nutmeg. But whole nutmeg, when you start to grind it, all of the essential oils are right here, okay? And we're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Now, if you want a lot of Spaetzle, you can double the recipe. If you want a little Spaetzle, for 2, for me and Rose tonight, you can have the recipe. This is a very easy recipe to either go up or go down depending on how many people you have. And the recipe that I post with this will be the original recipe. And so it would serve 4. I've halved it because we're only going to have 2. If you have guests over, double it. Okay? We've got all of this. What we're going to do is we are going to put our flour into a bowl. We've got an egg that we're going to start to beat and incorporate into it. We're going to get some milk. We're going to do 1/8 of a cup of milk. Now, you'll notice that I didn't actually measure the milk, okay? And that's because we want this recipe to have a consistency, a certain consistency. We're going to add the salt. We're going to add the pepper. Okay. We're going to add the nutmeg. Oh, and the smell of fresh ground nutmeg is just amazing. And so what we're looking for is we're looking for a consistency. We want it to be looser than a dough, okay? And so this is a little too thick. And so we're going to add some milk, and we'll continue adding milk until we've got what I call a loose dough. Okay, you can see this starting to come together here. We want it to be smooth. And we want it to run, but not too quickly. We want it to be a nice jog, okay? We want that perfect thickness. I'm going to turn the heat up on the butter a little bit. I'm going to be at about a low to medium, halfway in between. I'm going to put my potato ricer right there. I'm going to pour in. Again, it's got that nice consistency, a loose dough. And if a little bit gets into the water without going through the Spaetzle maker or the ricer in this case, that's okay. That's all right. And I'm just going to very lightly start to press. And you can see them coming out. And I'm going to move them around. And they are going to start to cook. Just like that. And I am going to grab, actually let's use a strainer on this. I've got a handled strainer, but for you to be able to see what's going to look good, we're going to come back here into the pantry. We're going to get our strainer, just like that. Now, while we're waiting for this to cook, and it's going to cook just like a regular fresh noodle, okay? So we're just going to keep an eye on it. We don't want to overcook it. We don't want to undercook it. We want it to be maybe a little bit al dente. But you're saying to yourself, but Chris, we want a vegetable. Why can't we have a vegetable with dinner? We'll take our butter off the heat so it doesn't burn there. You want a vegetable? Fine. We'll do a vegetable. We can do that. Healthy people. Here's my theory. We have a fabulous entree. We've got a Schnitzel for an entree. So we're looking for something with a little bit of starch to it, for a little bit of filler. That's where our Spaetzle is going to come in. But yes, to be healthy, we should have a vegetable. But if we're concentrating on an entree, do we want to divide our attention to a really fancy vegetable? I don't think so. And so here's what I do. I buy a frozen vegetable, right? Throw it in a bowl. I put it in my microwave. I hit my frozen vegetable button. If you don't have a frozen vegetable button, microwave the vegetable, right? So that it becomes hot and steamy. I get some butter. And I get some salt. And I get some pepper. And when it comes out, I add some salt. I add some butter, and I add some pepper. The pepper adds the heat. The butter adds the fat, right? The salt adds the salt. We're at those 4 elements of a good meal, or of a good recipe. Sometimes cooking just means taking what's already been manufactured and adding the elements that the manufacturer forgot to put in. Okay? You can buy bags of fancy vegetable mixes in the store, and it'll have a sauce in a bag, a microwavable bag, or you can just do it yourself. And it's going to be a good meal for your family. These are looking perfect. Okay, so this is what it looks like, just a tiny dumpling. I'm going to cool this off a little bit. Perfection. Spaetzle is made. There isn't anything like particularly special about Spaetzle. Okay, it's made to go with something. That lemon sauce that we created for our Schnitzel is so good on this. But it'll go with a gravy. What we're going to do is we're going to kick it up a notch a little bit here. Let's grab some mitts. We're going to drain this off. We're going to let this dry out a little bit. We're going to add our butter back to the heat. I think the vegetables are almost done. We're going to pull our vegetables. We're going to add our butter. We're going to add our salt. We're going to add our pepper. We're going to toss. We're going to let that butter melt down in there off of the heat. Stir it around a little bit. Et voila, you've got some nice green beans. There's your vegetable. For all you health nuts. Alright, our butter is up to temperature, and what we're going to do is we're just going to fry this Spaetzle a little bit. Now you don't have to fry it. You can serve it as is. If you just melted a little bit of butter on the Spaetzle, done. You're good to go. But if you fry it just a skosh, that butter will incorporate in. And we'll talk about pan technique. We'll cover it a little bit now. I'm going to do a stir-fry recipe for you guys, and we'll really talk about pan technique. Pull towards you as you flip. Okay? and that gets all of the sides of the noodle. Okay, move it around, let it fry up just a little bit. See what it looks like. It's starting to get a little bit of some fried texture to it. You can smell that butter. And I am just using a non-stick pan to do this in. I'm going to grab a tasting spoon. And I want to make sure that I'm right for salt. Salt's perfect. Pepper. Pepper's great. Butter. Butter's good. This is ready to go. A little bit of parsley for a garnish. And we now have German Spaetzle to go with our Wiener Schnitzel. This is absolutely my favorite meal, and it's my wife's favorite meal too. When we cook for the people we love, that's part of some people's love language. It's part of my love language. It's how I let Rose know that I love her, as I make her Schnitzel and Spaetzle. How much do we love Schnitzel? The dog that you heard barking in my last video, his name is Chapworth von Schnitzelstein, and it is pronounced Schnitzelstein, not Schnitzelstein. Schnitzelstein. And bon appetit.